Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom, happy Thursday. And it is, you're going to like this one, in this pandemic world we live in. Today is National Handshake Day.
Handshake Day.
Yes, not sure how many of those. I do have lunch plans, so I will meet with the person. We'll probably shake hands, but beyond that, I don't know. And
Bring your sanitizer.
I haven't been bringing sanitizer.
Okay.
Yeah. You raise a good point, though. Probably need to.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting how our conversation this week has been about reentry.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of in that space with the pandemic as well. You know, it's like, okay, how are people managing this? Not even just going back to work, which is a whole nother, I mean, we could have 6 weeks of shows on.
We probably will. Don't ruin it.
Oh, sorry. But it's just into the community. You know, at what point do people, it's been awkward. You know, you have, I've been at these tournaments with some officials who you haven't seen in a while and some, you know, that are new, and you're
girls lacrosse tournaments.
Lacrosse
so we're clear.
So we're clear. And that whole awkward fist bump, somebody give you a hug if you haven't seen them in a while. It's a very awkward time, I think, for many who are trying to figure out, like, and it goes back to, like, what are you comfortable with? What am I comfortable with? What's the world see or the people around us think? So I think that this whole idea of anytime we're away, whatever that looks like, and then we come back into something, we have now new knowledge, experience, and perspective. And how do we manage that? Today, we're going to talk about how do we leverage it. I think is an interesting thing to consider. But before we do that, why don't you do a little promotion for what we have going on this afternoon?
Hey, folks, 4 p.m. Eastern today, we have the Renegade Roundup. That's right. We're going to bring all those entrepreneurs, those so-called renegades. We're going to put you on one little place. It's called Facebook. No, actually, it's called Zoom, isn't it? It's called Zoom. That's right. Works better in Zoom. We're going to put you in a room in Zoom, and then we're going to put you in individual rooms with 1 or 2 other people, and we're going to stir the pot. We're going to ask you to answer a question that's going to provoke you to say things that will help other people better understand you. So the best example I can think of, Tom, is a couple of months ago we did one, and it was National Jelly Bean Day, and we asked people what their favorite flavor of jelly bean was. And I actually found alignment with someone because I don't like jelly beans. And he came out and said, I don't really like jelly beans. I'm like, this is a guy I got to talk to. I've got to spend some time getting to know this guy because we have similar tastes. Other people align, like, oh, really? You like citrus? Oh, you like licorice? And the more you can do that, that's how you start to build relationships. And so we do this in a Renegade Roundup. It's available to anyone who's in the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. And hey, if you want to bring a friend, lucky day. We're not charging extra. We charge $0 for you, $0 for your friend. That's right. It's from the goodwill of Tom's heart, my heart, that we want to get people together. How's that, Tom?
That's pretty good.
You didn't have your graphic, did you?
You were doing such a good job and were so animated. I thought that was more important. Want me to put it up?
Production decision.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you. And you can see there that you missed June 8th.
Well, and I don't even think you shared the time, which is unusual.
4 p.m. I said 4 p.m. today, Eastern time.
Oh, okay. I think I missed
it. Said at the beginning.
I must have been sleeping through that.
I understand. So, Tom, let's talk about our topic of reentry. Just to set it up in case you're new to this, last week we talked about the need to get away, stepping away from work, whether it's for a minute, for 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days. This
Or,
week we're talking about,
or stepping away to focus on work in a different way.
yes, correct, correct. Sorry, yes, that too. This week we've been talking about how you come back into your work after you've been away for whatever reason. And we've had some really great discussions, but today our discussion is really going to focus on how you can use this reentering as an opportunity. And I've talked to several people this week about this topic, and they're like, oh, worst thing about my vacation is I've got to come back to work. That day I get back, there's a million emails. Everyone needs to meet with me. I've got voicemails I have to return. There's mail I've got to look at. There's all these things that have been piling up while I was away. So when we talk about leveraging it, Tom, I think we're really going against what most people think. I have a client who is taking a vacation this week for the first time in 17 years. And he said to me, I'm going to just let go. I've set my guys up to take care of everything. Whatever happens, happens. When I get back, I'm going to deal with it. And based on what I see, there's not going to be a big pile of stuff for him to deal with, which creates the other issue. Oh no, they don't need me. I really have no value here. I'm going to get fired. And so as we talk about leveraging it, we have to recognize that those feelings run through some of us at various times, whether we leave work early one day and they solve a big problem, or we go away for a week or two and come back and it's like, oh yeah, Tom, wow, we hardly missed you at all. It was like, whoa, wait, that's not right. So what are your thoughts on this whole idea, Tom, about leveraging it?
Well, I think that it's an opportunity to make a conscious decision about how you use that time that you come back in a way to be productive. Because likely you have definitely gained some knowledge, experience, or perspective. I like to think about going away to a conference. One of the challenges of going to a conference is you gain so much information. At least I do. I walk away with notes and notes and ideas that I could probably never do, but are awesome. Ideas that maybe I'd like to implement, and sort of synthesizing all of that and figuring out, what do I do with it? That's like one of the challenges. Or, let's say you go away on a work retreat and you come back with like all these plans. All right, well, how do we now implement it? Or, as you talked about, you get away and you get away from work and now you're coming back. And I think, one of the ways is to acknowledge it and to say, hey, look, this is what happened. And maybe it's an opportunity to bring people together and schedule a time to say, I went to this conference or I went to this retreat, or we had this offsite meeting, maybe with leadership or other people, so that all of your team, or even you as a solo person, went away and met with a coach or did something to sit down and say, okay, now I'm going to block out time for how am I going to make this work, or block out time with my team to share. Here's what I learned. Here were some of the key takeaways. Here were some of the things that are going on in our industry that you ought to be aware of. I think so often we go and do that, and many times it doesn't translate, or we just go in and try to implement something new, and people are wondering, like, well, why is that? Why are we doing this now? Because they never really shared what was behind this, whatever this new action was. And so I think that if we make a conscious effort to say, you know what, I'm going to pick a time that I'm going to meet with my team, or that I'm going to set aside an hour when I get back, or 2 hours, or whatever it is, to synthesize whatever it happened and then put it into action. And it might just be, I know that I'm going to have emails backed up because I intentionally didn't look at email. And so I need to set aside that time. So I think one of the ways to leverage it is, how do we manage our time coming back in, and not just say, I'm just going to go in and figure it out. Because when we go in and figure out, I think we're all over the place, and we become like the space shuttle that we just bounce off into space, and it's everywhere, and we're not as productive or effective as we can be. And I think so often all we want to do is get away, that we are not thinking about reentry. We're not putting those plans together of what is it going to look like when I come back, so that I don't either feel lost, disjointed, or I just throw my whole organization or team into a tizzy because I've brought all these new things that we're going to do differently, or I've come back and just want to know everything that they did over the past, however long that we were away. So I think it's that intentionality that is the way to leverage it moving forward.
I think there's also the issue, Tom, of when we get away, we tend to clear our head. I mean, when I'm away from the day to day, I have time to think more broadly. And when I come back from being away, even especially if I drive somewhere, oh boy, you give me 6 hours of drive time, I can come up with so many ideas. But I came up with those ideas in my head, and working with you in partnership, I can't assume that I come back to work after that long drive and you know exactly what's going on in my head.
Sure.
You didn't have the thought process. You didn't have the insight. You didn't go to the networking event that I went to in another city that spurred something. So we have to bring people up to speed. And you talked about it with your team. I think it's also with our clients and our partners. If we have clients who we do A for, and then suddenly we come back and we go, we want to add B, we need to help the clients understand B is not that different than A. It's an extension of A, or B is just a logical next step. Because often when I've had clients have those discussions, I'm going through it with the client right now, their clients are like, oh, that's great. Have you talked to this person? We could use B. And I think sometimes we don't do that. We expect people to figure it out and to be in our thought process. And as someone who has a million thoughts, I've learned that I can't assume that anyone can keep up with my thoughts because they're only in my head. And you, Tom, have your thoughts in your head.
Right.
And your thoughts in your head are really important to you, and mine are really important to me. When you and I sit down and go, hey, and we do this at least once a week, hey, I had this idea, or I want to run something by you, or this weird thing happened. That's when we start to bring those things together. And that's when you really have the opportunity to leverage being away. Because if we can look at things more clearly and step back from I got to get the widgets done, suddenly you step back and go, oh my God, every day I do this at 3:00. I worked in a building where every day at 3:00, the internet slowed down for like 6 months. One day I was at the bank down the street, and the person in the bank said, hey, it's time for us to upload all the transactions. Make sure you do that. I'm like, what service are you on? And it was the same service I was on. And lo and behold, it turned out the bank was a major consumer of data at 3 p.m. for like 45 minutes. Okay, don't schedule a Zoom meeting for 3 p.m., Bob. Don't expect to have really good internet access. Okay, so I would leave the office and go home and work if I needed to, if I had an important thing. That's one of those things. I dealt with that every single day. It wasn't until I got away and realized this is every day at 3:00. There's got to be something. And then the bank person just hearing that triggered something that, I don't think I would have ever solved otherwise. And I think that's the real opportunity to leverage it, is to really look at problems in new ways and see how to solve them.
Sure. You have to, I think we have the opportunity to be more open to new ideas and new concepts. And then how do we come back and implement them? And I think, it's easier to implement when you're alone, as you shared. Not only do you have a million thoughts going on, everyone else has a million thoughts going on, and figuring out how those are all at some point going to intersect is the real challenge. And typically, I think, like
it's also the real opportunity, though, right?
Sure, absolutely. I think we assume that people can understand where we're at, even with those people who we're closest to. We try to explain it, and it makes sense to us, and yet it doesn't always make sense to someone else. And so I think being clear about what the experience was that you had, what the knowledge you gained, what new perspective did you find? Why is that causing you to do what you are doing now? And making sure that people are fully aware of that. Because I think so often we, especially if you lead a team, you go off and you discover something, or you talk to someone and they give you a tip or an idea or a thought, and you come back and you're just like, we're going to do this. And everyone around you is like, well, why? What's causing that? What's the impetus behind this change? And I think unless we understand that, unless we share with them all the details, they just think, oh, here's one more, directive that we're being given, one more change of direction. It's kind of like the wind. Talk to this person, we're going to do something different. Talk to that person, we're going to do something different. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for leaders, is to help the people they lead understand why they've come back from this. Here's what they've gained. Here's why that's valuable. And I think one of the best things they can do is then share that with the team and say, give me your thoughts. What was real for me is I listened to this person speak and thought this was the greatest thing ever, and we had to implement it. I might have been caught up in the moment, or I was caught up in what I saw and my, what's real for me, but let me hear what's real for you. If we go in and do this, what does this look like? And how is this going to impact your work, the things that you're trying to accomplish? And, and I think that's the real way to leverage a new perspective or new knowledge, is make sure that all the people that it could impact, at least you hear their perspective and hear their thoughts, because they might be the person who deals with this the most and says, whoa, wait a minute. Here's how that's going to impact my work. How are we going to adjust for that? And I might not have even thought of it, because I was wrapped up in, oh, here's the efficiency I think we're going to get. Here's why this is going to be so great. And yet, for those people who then actually end up doing the work, might have different experiences. And so I think that's, again, where when you come back in with new concepts, thoughts, or ideas, or you're just in a different place, understanding that not everybody else there is in the same place. And, I think about it sometimes when, let's say you come back from a nice vacation and you go into the work, especially if you're an owner or a leader, and the people around you maybe don't have the ability to take the same kind of vacation. And if you're in there extolling all the great things about this wonderful trip you took and all the really great, cool things you did, and well, how does that impact the person who can't do that, who doesn't have the ability or the resources to have those kind of experiences? I think it's the same with conferences. That's one of the things I used to find, is that people used to feel, if there wasn't that equal balance of professional development, you go up and talk about how great the conference was, and we did this special thing one night, and the food was awesome, and the hotel was amazing, and we got to spend time.
It was so great to get away.
Right. And your team is sitting there being like, lucky you. We were stuck here doing all the work that you weren't doing. And so I think that those things are really good things to consider as we come back into that situation of, how is what we're sharing going to impact, or what we've experienced going to impact our teams.
And also in the entrepreneurial space, if you go off and you sign a big contract, hey, I was in, Dallas for 4 days and I just signed a big contract. This is going to be my biggest client. And your customers hear that, they're going to worry. They're going to think that they're being cast aside. And so that re-entry there, that going to them and going, hey, I've already figured it out. I can accommodate this additional client. It's not going to affect business with you at all, is really important. And again, we go back to that idea of communication.
Right.
How do you manage this from this is what's going on in my head, this is what's going on in the world, this is how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together? And I think that's the piece that's often missing, as you said at the beginning, with this whole idea of reentry. It's like, here are the pictures of my really great trip. Oh, look, here's a saltwater taffy from the ocean. I guess if you're on in the mid-Atlantic, you understand that. If you're not in the mid-Atlantic, let me explain to you quickly. I don't know why, but people who go to the beach on the East Coast always bring saltwater taffy back. They bring a box. It sits in the conference room forever because no one really wants to eat it, but they feel like it's the thing they have to do. So there you have it. If you're on the East Coast, you're blessed or unblessed with the opportunity to have saltwater taffy. Are you a fan of saltwater taffy?
Nah, I haven't had it in so long that I give or take it. You know.
Yeah, I don't see the appeal.
Yeah,
I
it's
just,
okay. I liked it as a kid, I think.
to me, it's just a brick.
There is that. All right, Bob, as we start to wrap up this show, what's your one thing on leveraging reentry?
I think it's realizing that where I am when I'm coming back from being away or at a conference or whatever is not where everyone else is at. So I've got to collaborate. Can't just dictate. I've got to collaborate. And if I collaborate, and it may be collaboration where it's like I had this great idea and everyone around the team or 3 of my clients say to me, that's a really great idea, Bob, but not for you. And here's why. And I've got to be open to listening to that because, you said it, you get real jazzed up after a conference. Like, I can fix any problem. Here's the solution to all the problems. Doesn't always work that way because that perspective might be skewed, overly optimistic or not budget conscious or whatever, because something about getting 50 miles away from home makes everything seem more possible than it does when you're sitting in the office.
Sure. Well, I think the other thing too is what I always used to experience because I worked in higher ed athletics for a long time, and we were at the low end of the resources, and usually the groups that were speaking were at the high end of the resources, and so the things that they were able to do, I could never go back and implement, not at least in the exact same way they did. I didn't have the same resources, and I think that's the important piece because you can come back and be like, oh yeah, we're going to do this, then you get back and you're like, yeah, wait a minute, not necessarily the case.
Right.
And I love that.
What's your one thing?
My one thing is I think that it's being intentional about finding time and setting time aside to really go through and, debrief, analyze, figure out what it is. It's funny. One of my coaches used to say when that her plan from going to a big event like that, where you're coming back with tons of notes, is go through the notes on the plane or take some time and do it and highlight like a couple that are like, okay, here are the ones that I think I can implement right away and might have this point. And then here are others that are really good, might not just be the time for that. So I think that if you are intentional about setting aside time to figure it out, and that's whether you go to something that's a professional development, something that is to figure out a challenge, work through an opportunity, or you're just taking time to get away, that you are intentional about how you're going to come back and you set aside time to figure out, okay, now that I've had this experience, how does that impact where I'm at and what I'm going to do? Because otherwise, I think it all gets lost. And it's just, you just get right back into the routine of what you've always done and not take the opportunity to sort of say, okay, what went well, what didn't go as planned, and what would I do differently? So that now as I move forward, I can say, this is how that experience is going to help leverage where I'm at and where I'm trying to get to.
I like that. And folks, Tom talked about finding time. I want you to find time for a couple of things for us. Number one, don't forget the Renegade Roundup networking event today, 4 p.m. Eastern time. All the information in the Ring Renegades Facebook group. You'll get a link to Zoom. It's super easy, super fun. Second thing you can do is go to the Ring of Renegades and join us in the Ring of Renegades. You can even send a friend to the Ring of Renegades. If you know a renegade, we'd love to have them join our growing group. We are a private group. There's a reason for that. We want people to have a safe space to talk about the issues that are real to them, what's going on with them, and to get the support, the encouragement, the guidance, the help they need to prosper, however they choose. It's not a judgment zone. It's not a marketing pitch area. It's not like, oh, let me go in there and get access to 1,000 entrepreneurs so I can sell them real estate. That's not going to work. Won't last. We want people who are dedicated to carving their own pathway forward. And I really do encourage you, if you're already a member of the group and you're watching this broadcast, please Ask other people to join. You probably know someone who's going through what you may have gone through at some point in the last year or 10 or 20 years. I have this thing I want to do. I really want to make it work. I know I can do it. And I'm just missing one little thing. That's the crowd we want to attract. And that's where the people are having all the progress. And when you look in that group, you can see the incredible success stories that are just amazing. So if that's of interest to you, please do that. And then lastly, look at our Renegade Success Network. It's a real opportunity for you to take all this and leverage it to be even better, to get where you want to go faster, because we will help you overcome those obvious or unobvious issues that come up by asking you the kinds of questions that get you to think through a challenge, to realize a situation that you may not even realize is going on. Tom and I have done it with each other on and off for about 10 years. We created this program so that we can help others get the same benefit that we've gotten from each other. So with that, Tom, will you play them out with the little Renegade Success Network information?
I will. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you have thoughts about leveraging your reentry, please put it in the comments or go ahead and share it in the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. We'd love to see it. And so we'll see you inside of that group, or we'll see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time, because Bob and I have something going on. 7 a.m. Eastern time for our next edition of today's Antidote.
It'll be a wake up early day.
And here's some further information about the Renegade Success Network. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you soon. Are you struggling to make your vision a reality? Are you stuck and don't know what to do next? Are fear and doubt holding you back? The Renegade Success Network will help you determine the next steps on your pathway. Here is some of what you will get. Create your pathway call to start you on a better path. Unlimited laser solution sessions to keep you from getting stuck. Nurture your network events to build your network with other successful leaders. Monthly Renegade challenges to prepare you for what lies ahead. The Renegade Success Vault, giving you access to videos, tools, and tips on specific topics anytime you need them. And the Renegade Success Network community, an exclusive Facebook group of like-minded renegades, all working towards achieving their goals. You have a choice. Do it yourself and fumble forward slowly and alone. Or join the Renegade Success Network and be part of a community built to help you find your own pathway. Join today at renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Act now and jumpstart your journey on your own pathway to success.